Success Librarian here at Westchester, and I'm also one of the co-advisors for Tri Alpha, our first gen honor society. Today, we're hoping to talk a little bit about grad school, really right from everybody's mouths that is a first gen graduate students themselves. So we'll go around the room and just introduce ourselves. Again, my name is Amy. I'm also a first gen college student. In fact, I went to Millersville and graduated in 2009 and then went on to Clarion University before traveling around and landing here at Westchester. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have so many engaged graduate students who are excited to talk to you today. So first I'll turn it over to Sam to introduce herself and then we'll go around.
Hi, I'm Sam. I am a first year graduate student here at Westchester. My undergrad degree is also from Westchester University in sports medicine. And then my current degree is going to be in higher education policy and student affairs. So I am currently the graduate assistant for Tri Alpha, but I also work on the First Gen initiative as a whole within student affairs. And I'm going to send it to Petey.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I am Petey, or Petio, I use him his pronouns, and I'm a first-year graduate student in geography with a thesis option. I completed my undergraduate coursework at Penn State in astronomy and Spanish, and I am also a first-year generation student. So I'm here very excited to see you all and learn more about you as well. And I'm going to pop it up to China.
Hi, everybody. I am China. I am a second year graduate student. I am in the master's program for higher education and higher education policy and student affairs. I will be a two-time alumni of Westchester University in, 2 weeks? So really excited about that. I do not have a GA right now because I am currently serving as the assistant director for the Dowdy Multicultural Center. So really excited to see you all and talk to you today. I'm not sure if I'm popcorning to anyone else, but if I am, just go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Noor. I attend in Westchester as an undergrad. I was a criminal justice major, and I am still a criminal justice major. I am a graduate assistant at the Twardowski Career Center, and I'm starting law school this fall. And I think I'm going to popcorn it over to Chardonnay.
Thank you, Nora. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it, just like the wine. I'm super excited to be here today to share some knowledge and show support because I am a first generation college student and Lord, it is not easy. I am in the communication studies master's program, but I've been hanging out with my HEPSA people. I'll be getting a graduate certificate in a couple weeks with China. So it's super exciting to be graduating. It's taken me 2 years to get my master's because I work full-time at JP Morgan Chase. I'm currently a program manager. I was a corporate trainer. I've been with the firm for like 8 years. And I'm also in the Air Force Reserve. So I'm a training manager there as well. I've been serving in the Air Force for about 10 years now. So I work 2 jobs. I have a fabulous husband. We were recently married in December. Woo woo, love my hubby. And we have a 2-year-old baby girl. So busy life, definitely excited to share some knowledge and excited to be here.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. As you can see, everybody, these graduate students are amazing, doing wonderful work here at the university and are really invested in Westchester. So to get started, we're really going to talk through 3 big topics, and how we thought about doing it is having the students talk for about 5 minutes or so about each of the topics and then open it up for questions from all of you. And feel free to use the chat for questions or just pop your hand up and we can call on you that way. But the first thing we're going to be talking about is applying to graduate school. Then we'll talk through tips for thriving in graduate school. Obviously, Chardonnay is figuring out ways to thrive in grad school, even though she's very, very busy. And then we'll talk through a little bit about GA positions and internships on campus so that you have some idea of like how to fund your graduate education. All right, so I'll turn it over to applying to grad school. I can't remember who was going to talk about that. Is that you, Sam?
Yeah.
All right.
So for me, it was a little bit different. I applied with a lot of help from a mentor, with Dr. Jackie Hodes. really helped me with my application process. But I would say one thing that I didn't know when I was applying is that there are a lot of waivers for grad school application fees. So be sure to whoever you're in contact with at the school that you're applying to, whether that's Westchester or another school, that you ask them about a grad school application fee waiver, because it was pretty easy to get one. All we had to do at Westchester was go to some kind of accepted student or like prospective students day or something similar to that. And then they were able to give us a code. So that would be like my number one tip when you're applying, to make sure that you ask about that kind of thing. And also don't be afraid to email program coordinators and ask for help, because while the process is very similar to undergraduate applications, there can be some nuances with it, like they're going to maybe ask for a resume or something like that. So just being in contact with the people who they have connected is going to be super helpful for you.
Yeah, I agree. And now to tell off of what Sam was saying, I also wanted to remind us all that maybe the program that you're applying to requires or suggests you taking the GREs. If that's the case, please start looking into that right now, because you want to start studying for that. I know that I started 2 months prior, and that was not enough time. In addition to what Sam was saying, also you may find a bunch of fee waivers, especially as first year and minoritarian students. That's also something that a lot of schools provide in their graduate programs. However, it is also noteworthy that applying to a graduate program is time consuming, and you don't want to be like me and apply to 11 graduate programs, because it's just a lot of time. Some of them don't provide the fee waivers, and I wish I would have known that I can do more research on the program that I am interested to go into, and maybe lower that list to, instead of 11 programs, to maybe 4 or 5, because that would have saved me a lot of time, and maybe I would have been able to study more for my GREs and things of that nature. Also, while you're applying to graduate school, you're going to be requested to submit letters of recommendation. You're going to be working on a personal piece and things of that nature. So start working on those things. Make a list of the things that you think define you, because these people will get to know you via paper before you can interview for their programs. So you want to make a really good first impression on them when they read your statement of purpose. That way you can take care of those things, and also start emailing your professors that you may want to write you letters of recommendation early, so they don't feel like you're forcing them to write you one. Because I know that people will be willing to help, but if you reach out to them with 3-4 months in advance, they're going to be happy that you're also taking their time into consideration.
Did anyone else from the panel have something to add? Thank you so much. Okay, go ahead, China.
I'll add something really quick. If possible, reach out to people. LinkedIn is going to be like your best friend. Reach out to people who are in the program already, and don't be afraid to ask them questions. Ask them about work-life balance. Ask them about professors or who we will be working with. Just if you can, don't be afraid to try to get some answers to questions you have prior to writing your statement, or just doing more research about the program, because it's going to be really helpful to have people who are currently in the program and going through it to give you a really good perspective on what to expect.
Thank you so much, Sam, China, and PD for sharing your experience there. Did anybody have any questions about applying to graduate school? Again, if you have questions and you're not sure, you can always put those in the chat. For now, I think we can move on to tips for thriving in graduate school, and I think all of us can speak to this. So who wants to get started on that? Chardonnay, maybe?
And it's so funny. I looked at the question beforehand and I thought about what I wanted to share. And the first thing I wanted to say is that it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. This is my either my third or my fourth graduate program. And then I finally finished. I started off at Dell State University doing educational leadership. And I just knew that was going to be my master's program. And then I changed my mind after I went to the Air Force and was like, oh, I'm going to do medical. But then I got into JP Morgan in 2014 and was like, oh, I'm going to be a businesswoman. I need to get an MBA. So I went to UD and I hate math. And I convinced that director that I was going to love it so much. I'm like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm going to be the best math person. I'm going to make best friends with the tutors. And I barely made it through statistics. And I got out of economics the next semester and turned my book in. And I was like, I need to sit down for a little bit. I don't know what I want to do. And then I was going to go to a training and development master's program that was out Harrisburg. It was like 4 hours away from me. And I was this close to paying for that application. And then I was like, let me just sit. And then I was like, I know communications is something that is always going to be the same for me, right? And no matter where my career takes me, I think this is going to be good. And I reached out to the director and he was phenomenal, helped me find a waiver, helped me find a GA position. And next thing you know, this was the place that I landed. And so it's taken me a while to get my master's. And so the best, advice I can give is keep in mind your journey is your journey. It's hard not looking at your peers and seeing them succeed. And you're like, I'm going to make this work. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I still don't know. So it's like, just try to stay true to yourself and it'll really work out. And so keeping that in mind, I love to be transparent that some of my peers have their PhDs by this point and you guys are like, wow, she's graduating. But, there's so many different things that could distract you. I would just really encourage everybody to have no shame in being true to yourself because it's really just all about you.
I'll jump in. So I have a few things. One important thing I would say, tips on just being successful is having a school life balance or a work-life balance is going to be really important. There will be times in your program where you just feel overwhelmed or you just feel like this is really hard or you feel stressed out. And it's really important for you to create boundaries for yourself and have days or even a few hours where you completely unplug from being a student and kind of get back to your normal life or your outside life. Because sometimes school can become your entire life. You're so invested in what you get out of these 2 years or however long your program is, and you forget to unplug, you forget to separate and have these different parts of yourself. So I would say just really, really make sure that you create those boundaries. Second, I would say make friends. And I know a lot of people are like, make friends. I'm an adult now. No, make friends because they are really going to be the people you lean on in your program when assignments start getting really rough and you need advice and you want to kind of chat and look at papers and different things. So put yourself out there and don't be afraid to make new friends. They will help you. You will feel like you have someone to lean on when things get hard. So just a few tips.
Noor, did you want to add anything? Tips for thriving in graduate school?
I would say, especially for me, my main thing is with 4 grad classes and 3 jobs, staying organized is the biggest thing, planning ahead. What I did actually, and what I even did in undergrad and what I continue to do is I take all my syllabi and I look at all the due dates and I make a document and I separate it into months. So I'll do, from January, February, and I see each day for that month what's due. So I can look at it before each week and I know I have this due. Let me get started on this. If I have questions, I go to the professor. Never be afraid to ask too many questions or meet with your professors. So I would say staying organized in the way that makes sense to you. For me, that's having a calendar, that's making a document that I can refer to, that's a reference. Something visual is really appealing to me. For you, it might be something different. So staying organized and staying on top of your work, especially if you're taking a lot of core classes, like me. Why did I do that? So just staying on top of it and being organized is my biggest tip.
I'll say one thing. I think not being afraid to access the resources that stereotypically undergraduates are going to be accessing. So access free counseling, access free tutoring, access the writing center, like all these different resources that we don't typically think of as, you know, graduate students using, use them. They are still free for you. Your financial situation in grad school is not probably going to be where you want it to be, but you're getting that degree. And so access all the free resources that are available to you on your campuses. It's huge. And I would say going along with like accessing the writing center, there is a lot of writing. There's not a lot of exams unless you're in a medical type of field where you might be taking, you know, various tests and stuff like that. But in most grad programs, it's a lot of paper writing, thesis chapters, things like that. So accessing the writing center, the library, someone like Amy is crucial and is really helpful. And also understanding the systems that your school uses. So understanding like EBSCO hosts and like searching articles, and I'm sure China is using all that stuff right now. But using all those things to really help yourself and not being afraid to once again like ask questions, because nobody's going to shoot you down. People are really willing to help, especially when you have someone at West Chester like Amy who will literally help you sit there and go through your research. I know Jesse China's nodding, but she will.
Just to add to that, like no matter where you go to school, there's going to be librarians that are specific for whatever major or program you choose. So there's always going to be another subject expert who can help you with the writing, can help you with the research, because that's really going to be essential as you're kind of working on your thesis. Thank you guys. Petey, did you have anything to add to tips?
Yeah, I really just wanted to emphasize a common theme that's going throughout each of our pieces that we've been sharing. I wanted to mention that in undergraduate, you could very easily take 5-6 classes and just make it through, just because that's how life was. Something very different about graduate school is that you have maybe 3 assignments and just attending lecture, which means that these assignments are worth large chunks of your grade, meaning that you cannot just wait until the day before or even the week before to start them. The day you are aware that this assignment is going to be due, let's say in a week, 2 weeks, a month or so, you just start making little, progress, take little steps each day, whether that's an hour every day or, 2-3 hours, whatever works for you best. Because I really wanted to emphasize and let you all know that it's not the same. You will be sitting there the night before and it's just not going to work. So just being transparent and being very communicative about that really important point.
I also want to say this, just going off of PD. We have outside lives and your professors will most likely understand that. If you need time to complete an assignment, because those assignments cannot be done, like PD said, the night before, like that's not happening. Don't be afraid to reach out to your professors and say, hey, I had work late and, I wasn't able to get this done, or I had to do this or that. Like they realize that you guys are adults and you have an outside life. So if you absolutely really do need extensions, like don't be afraid to talk to your professors about that.
Yeah, like China said, all of your professors have asked somebody for a extension at some point. Like all of us are expected to publish. And I know that I have asked for extensions. Hi, Dr. Davenport. Happy Banana Day.
They said Happy Banana Day.
Happy Banana Day. How can you hear that?
I have AirPods.
Oh. I'm like, really? I can't hear nothing. Is China over there?
Yeah, China's there.
All right. Who else is on there? You got 20 people on that Zoom.
Chardonnay?
Yes, Chardonnay, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
So how are you?
Oh, hey, hanging in there. I'm getting in here on her. I'm messing your Zoom up. Y'all have grams up, baby. Y'all have a nice day. Peace. It's not that. You got to stick that finger.
You got to go and fill it
in there like that. There you go. Are these all grad students?
These are all a bunch of undergrad students. Like, well, the people on the panel are talking about grad school.
Oh, cool. Well, grad school is a good thing. Y'all should go.
So, yay, Dr. Davenport. So we've got a couple questions coming up in the chat too. Like somebody asked, Gabrielle asked, when applying to undergrad, there's usually a common app that works for like multiple institutions. Is there something like that for graduate school, or do we have to apply directly to them? Does anybody want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit on that, and then somebody else can add if they feel like there's something missing. So that's something that I realized applying to graduate school. Each institution has their own way of managing applications, meaning that Westchester has their own, Penn State will have their own, and so on and so forth. That is also the reason for which you're going to be paying an application fee for each of these places unless you access a fee waiver. However, a resource that I found very useful in my process, having applied to 11 programs, was this website called the Grad Cafe, where you can go and just check on admissions information. Typically, people would just post their admissions decisions. So for instance, let's say that you're interested in speech language pathology at Westchester University, you applied 3 months ago and you just don't know where people are with their decisions and things like that. You can go on the Grad Cafe and you can see how that process is going for others. And that can give you an idea or insight on how that's moving. I found that to be really useful, especially because I am a very anxious person. So that helped me a lot in the process, especially after having applied.
Yeah, I think just to echo what PD said, it's very much institution based, how they do things. And also to that point too, deadlines could be different depending on the institution, and also depending on the program. So definitely make sure you're scouring the website, figuring out which program you want to apply to. And PD just put into the chat too about the Grad Cafe. Another question we got from Angela, this is a really great question, so I'm hoping a few of you from the panel can answer this, is how to make your resume and personal statement stand out if you don't have a lot of research or internship experience.
I can go. So I had a lot of experience, but I was very worried about my GPA from undergrad. I had a really rough junior-ish senior year. So my GPA just wasn't the strongest. And I knew that I had to advocate for myself in my personal statement. So one way to get around not having like a lot of research or a lot of experience is just to explain your passion. Why do you want to be in this? Why do you want to come to this program? What would this program do for you in your career? Like, what are your plans? How do you plan to make effective change in the world by having this degree? Could be really convincing to someone who is reading your statement. So it doesn't have to be, well, I've done this or I've done that. It could be, these are the things I'd like to do. And, you know, with this degree or being permitted to this program, I could be able to do these things.
I can add to that. So I work in the Career Center, so I review resumes and personal statements all day, every day. And a lot of students come in and they talk about not having a lot of research or experience in general. And one thing we say is, so your resume is kind of like your objective summary, and your personal statement is where you get to tell your story. So expanding on where you've been, where you are now, and where you want to be in your personal statement, telling it like a story so the reader is engaged. I think that's how you stand out. And there's other ways to stand out. I mean, of course, the GRE, having a great score, and then supplementing that with great recommendation letters from professors who you know will vouch for you. Telling a personal statement in a way that's engaging, where in a sea full of applicants, the reader can remember a part of your story and pick you out of a group of people. As far as resume goes, I mean, you can, even if somebody doesn't have experience, being engaged in clubs, in extracurriculars, that's something you can have. Holding leadership positions, that's something that looks great to a graduate admissions committee. And those are ways to kind of mitigate what would happen if you didn't have extensive experience. just being involved, especially on campus and within your community, that's very valuable. So.
And I would add to that too, if you weren't able to be involved because you were working, talk about that. Talk about what your experience was like, you know, getting through undergrad, having to be a working student. And, you know, you can speak to your adaptability or, you know, your ability to work really hard and things like that. And I say this somewhat as a joke, but somewhat seriously, that we've all gone through things. Now is your time to put those to good use. And I know that that's something that like people don't talk about a lot, but like we have all been through things and they have made us who we are. And so putting those into, you know, skills that we have developed because of things, I think is really important. And also, like China said, my grade, there was a semester where you see my GPA in undergrad go down. And I was very open in my application process about like, hey, like you can see I didn't do well this semester, here's why. And really, you know, being open and transparent in my interviews as well, because they will ask you questions about like, hey, what happened this semester? And, you know, being honest and being like, hey, this happened, or like, hey, this class really kicked my butt, or like just being honest with them throughout the process was like huge. So you don't have to worry if you don't have, you know, research or internship experience. A lot of people don't. So just kind of playing to your strengths and your experiences.
I wanted to piggyback off of that and also to save you money. What I did with that UD thing, I put together my whole application before I submitted it and made time to meet with the director and brought her everything and wanted to know her honest opinion of my possibility of getting into the program. Like, is there anything that I could do to make my application stronger? You know, this is my essay. These are my letters of recommendation, like everything I printed out and made time to meet with the director and kind of sold myself and saw what her recommendations were. And that's how I got a good feel for like, she was like, yeah, you know, I think this is good. And then I went ahead and moved forward to pay the money to apply. So, you know, definitely take everybody's advice, but if you're, you know, you're concerned, then before you send your application in, make time to meet with the director and provide everything and tell them, hey, I just want to give you everything and get your opinion and be able to best sell myself and see if there's anything that I can take from you. So just a piece of advice that I did when I wasn't so nervous, because I played up exactly. My GPA sucked. I didn't look my best on paper. And so I really wanted to take an opportunity to explain and also sharing what my long-term goals were, so they could know. And I think that helps too, where you can share what happened in undergrad, but it's like, this is my plan where this degree is going to help me do this. I want to get involved in the Graduate Student Association. I want to do this. I want to, you know, add value to your program. So if you're able to tell your story of like, what's in it for them by bringing you on board to the program, that could possibly help you too.
Yeah, and I see a question from Riley in the chat that Amy answered, and I also wanted to provide my perspective on it because I took a year break between undergraduate and graduate school, and typically when you do this, admissions committees will want to know what you were up to, how you use your time. They're just going to be curious because they want to see what type of person you are. So to answer your question directly, Riley. It is not a bad idea to look into the programs that you're potentially interested in and seeing what areas you may be deficient on. So for instance, if I was in astronomy program at Penn State and I wanted to go into an astrophysics degree at Brown University, then I needed to be looking at their admissions entry requirements and saying, okay, so I've taken 3 physics courses, maybe taking a 4th one wouldn't be a bad idea. And if you're not really sure about what your deficiencies may be, you can by all means email your transcript to a potential professor that you're going to be doing research with at this institution and asking them, hey, so this is my coursework and I'm thinking of applying to your program. Can you tell me what areas I can get better at and get a little bit more experience? Also, if you're working or just doing things for yourself, like for instance, if you want to learn how to code, if you want to go and do a merit course or the Peace Corps, those are also really good things that you can add as part of your statement of purpose when you're writing that. So in short, just making sure that you're using your time wisely so that when they ask you what you're up to, you have a good response for them.
Yeah, thank you for that advice, Petey. That was so much better than looking out for non-degree seeking. But if you just wanted to like take a few classes in a potential program that seems interesting, that's always one way to go. Sometimes they're called non-degree seeking and sometimes they're called certificate programs. Either way, you usually can get around some of those like common graduate school requirements if you're just taking a class that way. Did anybody else have any other questions about tips for thriving in grad school? And feel free to just speak out if that's easier for you too.
I actually have a question regarding like the admissions. Do you guys recommend, like you guys were talking about like the GRE, but I know there's also like the GMAT, like which one is preferred?
I believe it really depends on the program you're applying for and what they're asking for. I've typically seen the GRE more, but it does depend what your program you're applying for. Some programs are moving away from the GRE and like from any type of testing entirely. So you really would have to look at the specific program applications. But typically, I believe it still is the GRE.
Okay.
Just to add on to that, the GMAT is typically required for a number of business degrees. So like if you want to do an MBA, or if you want to study accounting or finance at a law school or any business type school, they will ask for the GMAT. Like Sam was saying, the GRE is the typically asked for or suggested examination. If you want to go into med school, then you're going to be taking the MCAT and some subject tests as they may be required. That varies greatly between the programs that you're applying to. So typically when you're in the application process, you're going to see what requirements are to be completed when you're applying for this program. And you don't have to wait until the application opens. You can always look at the year before so that you can start preparing for those exams and whatnot.
And ask. I know the University of Delaware wanted the GMAT, and when I went to that director and showed her I had already taken the GRE, she looked at my score and was like, no, you don't have to take that. It's because that was another question that I had asked when I went to show her. I was like, hey, I have my GRE score and stuff. She was like, oh, okay. So that saved me some time. So don't be afraid to ask.
Yes, don't be afraid to ask. That's your number one asset, I think, like as a student now, but definitely as a grad student and when you're applying. I'm thinking back to when I went to grad school, which was at Clarion. If you had like a GPA over 3.0, you didn't need a test. So definitely look into that and see if you can get out of taking it, because some of these tests can get really expensive. Like the GMAT is like $270. I don't know how much the GRE is, but definitely look into that before you schedule it and spend the money. Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to move on to talking about graduate assistant positions and internships, and I'll open it up to the panel, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sam to moderate the questions in the chat.
So what a graduate assistant position is, first off, is where you get a tuition waiver and most likely a stipend. If you go to school in Pennsylvania, your stipend may not be exactly what you are expecting of it because we do have such a low minimum wage, but that tuition waiver covers your entirety of your tuition. So that this is not a surprise to anyone, your fees are still covered by yourself. They are not included in that tuition waiver. So some people are taking out a loan to cover your fees, some people were just working extra jobs or whatever, but you do have to pay for that fee. That surprised me when I was a first semester grad student, so I didn't want y'all to be surprised by that charge, but it does cover your tuition, which is really cool. And so you can take out GA positions for anywhere from 10 to 25 hours, and your stipend does go up with the number of hours that you take on, and it covers the number of classes that you're in. So basically, like for mine, for example, I've had a few different ones. My first GA was for the AVP of Student Development, Dr. Kawamoto, working on like first gen initiatives. So I was pretty much sitting in an office just doing like planning and such stuff like that, benchmarking. And then this semester it has been with Tri Alpha and within psychology advising, but they are available everywhere. So ranging anywhere from career development, athletics, there's academic athletic mentoring at Westchester. There is Compass mentoring with Dr. James. There is the DMC. All these different offices on campus are essentially run on the ground by GAs. So it's really cool. There's a ton of positions available, and other schools are going to have them as well. And they are posted on LinkedIn and places like that as well. So you can go and search. Handshake is where Westchester posts all of them. So if you're thinking about going to Westchester, I will go on Handshake and look for open GAs. Spirit and Traditions has a GA that's open if you're interested in like fun stuff. Like, so there's a ton open on this campus that you can look into and use Handshake for, but they will pay for your tuition. Internships are a little bit different because they're typically for class credit or like just for the experience of it. You're not getting that tuition waiver necessarily with that. Some programs are double dip programs where you can pool your internship hours from your GA hours. But that's the difference between a GA and an internship.
I was also, go ahead, China.
I was just going to piggyback and say, if possible, try to pick a graduate assistantship that's in alignment with what you want to do in your career. One thing that was really awesome was that my GA, I was the graduate assistant for the Westchester University Resource Pantry. And because I worked there, I ended up getting a really good thesis topic. And so I have great research, and being able to do my thesis is a lot easier. And it kind of helped me get prepared and set up to be the assistant director of the DMC. So try to be as strategic as possible when looking at graduate assistantships and even internships, because they help build your resume and could essentially get you into the position that you really want.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this previously when I was introducing myself, but I am a GHD under the Office of Residence Life and Housing Services. And I am saying that because wherever you end up going, you may be facing, having to pay rent and things like that. And, that is very valid in all of our cases. I had the opportunity of being an RA at Penn State, and so I used that experience to see if I could, get one of these positions here, which was very beneficial. But this is not limited to just GAs. Universities and institutions will also have GRAs and TA positions, meaning that based on your coursework, you can be a TA for a class in your field. So for instance, let's say that you are pursuing nutrition as a graduate student at University of Delaware. You may get a TA position, and you can also get a GRA position, which is a graduate research assistantship, meaning that they pay you to do research, to complete your thesis, and to also pay for your tuition. So there's a plethora of resources available. But like Sam was saying, if you're coming to Westchester, Handshake is a really, really good resource because it provides the ones that are on campus as well as the ones that are nearby. And that's like literally half the work for you.
Do you guys have any questions about GAs or internships or even like working or anything like that? Okay, cool. And if you guys have any questions about, oh, there you go, perfect. Okay. Does anybody want to talk to how competitive it is with grad school?
I'll say, I think it depends on what program you're in. I'm in the HEPSA program, and I think that for the most part, when you say competitive, like, do you mean like getting in or just in general with classmates? Because that can be a thing too. Getting in, like I said, I had a really crappy GPA, so I really advocated for myself and fought for it. Some programs are more competitive than others. The requirements are really stiff. And so it really just depends. And this is why I said earlier to, if you can, reach out to people who are currently in the program so that they can kind of give you tips and tricks on how to navigate that, because some are a little bit more challenging than others.
I had a question about what any of you guys' experiences were with like traveling in grad school, because like right now I'm only like 30 minutes away from Westchester, so I'm like, would it be worth it to like move for grad school? And if it is, like, the work balance, like I know some of you guys has been talking about working and going to school, so like just your experience with those, like the combination of those things.
I can definitely touch on that because I've lived in Delaware the whole time I've been in graduate school. And I was crazy my first semester. I had a graduate assistantship, 2 classes, and worked a full-time job. So I pushed myself to the absolute limit. But I remember I was looking at apartments, and I think the only reason I didn't move was because my husband and I had gotten together and he was closer, but I was this close to moving a little closer north. But for me, it was worth it. I mean, the commute sucks, but everybody has a different journey. So I just kind of felt like it is what it is. I definitely struggled with my full-time job when I was taking 2 classes. So I would say that's why I said it's a marathon, not a sprint. So if you can't take on a full-time class load, that doesn't mean you have to not do school. So many of my peers are like, wow, you're graduating? I feel like you just got, you just started. But it was like, I was pregnant, I had a newborn, and I was still taking my 1 class, struggling, trucking along. I had to take a semester off when I had my daughter, but I came right back. So I just want to encourage you that even if you have to take a semester off, or if you have to take 1 class, because that commute was a lot. I was lucky to have a manager who lets me, and I still have a class now that's at 4:25. So I have to leave work. I have to close all my meetings at 2:30. Right. And, sometimes I'm in class, my professor knows I'll log on and just check my work email real quick. So I just don't miss anything. So I just want to encourage you that no matter whether it's traveling, whether it's, working, there is a way, and you just shouldn't give up on yourself, because even if you have to take a break, you'll be so glad that you keep pushing along.
I want to piggyback on that too. So I live in Philadelphia. So on a good day, 30-minute drive. On a bad day, possibly an hour. Not gonna lie. And yeah, it is gonna take a toll on you. It is. Even now, like when I'm in grad school and working full time, and it's even harder. Traveling could be a lot, especially if it's to an institution like Westchester, where parking is crappy and you have to take 30 minutes to fight with someone in Sykes over a parking spot. Like, these are things like people don't think about when they thinking about grad students. Like, a lot of us don't live on campus. We are working professionals, or we have outside lives that don't permit us to be on campus. So just factor in those things. Travel can be it can be rough. So if you are thinking about doing a program, consider that. Like, how long do you want to travel? If there is travel, like, how close do you want to be? Are there opportunities for work nearby? These are all things you should think about. So yeah, consider that.
Thank you so much.
No, a little bit off of China's point too, like if you are only, if you're a 30-minute drive away from a school versus an hour drive, it does definitely make a difference. But I will say, if you're going to Westchester, the housing out here is ridiculously expensive. So if you get a GA position, it will not cover your rent. So you will need to supplement income in some way. So that's something that I was definitely thinking about in applying to grad schools, like how much, do I need to supplement my income? How many jobs do I have to work? Like that kind of stuff in moving, because living at home, I'm not paying rent. Living here, paying a lot of rent. So that was a thought too. I just want to go to the chat and look at the couple of questions that we got. So I see Gabrielle's question, which is just, is now a good time to start asking for letters of recommendation? And I see PD answer. So PD, if you want to like elaborate at all on that.
Yeah, sure. So I feel like I was saying previously, I typically try to put myself in my professor's perspective. And, these are very busy people who are teaching courses, they have personal lives, they're doing research, they're doing a number of things within the programs that they're working for, meaning that the sooner that you can ask them for a letter of recommendation, the better. If that's 6 months in advance, they will greatly appreciate the time that you're taking to let them know that you need it by a certain deadline. That is to say that if you email them with a month and a half before it's due, I would typically say that this is something that's frowned upon. Again, they want to help you, especially if they have a personal connection with you. You did research with them, you're in one of their courses. They will probably most likely say yes. However, just as you're doing all these things, be mindful of their time, and also keep in mind that even after they write this letter for you, you're now colleagues. So, they may reach out to you for things that may need in the future. And you can also stay in touch with them even after they write these letters on your behalf. So again, just to summarize all of that, and the other panelists can add too, I would say that the sooner that you can do this, the better. You can email them, meet with them, and get a feel of whether they are a good fit to write you a letter. Because not everybody who wants to write you a letter should write you a letter of recommendation.
And then we have another question in the chat, and I'm actually just going to bump right to China for this one because I know you did both of them. So is in person or online better in your opinion?
Honestly, I don't think one is better than the other. Granted, I did my program 2020 virtual in the middle of the pandemic. Okay, so that's when I first started. And now my second year is in person. What I will say is this, I had a really great experience virtual. A lot of people have a hard time making connections with people in person. You go through that like awkward phase of being new and not really knowing anybody. And if you are a person who is more introverted into yourself, being online could be a really great way for you to start like being able to talk to people without that pressure of like walking up and like having to say hi. And I think a lot of my classmates really appreciated that. We created strong bonds through Zoom. We had our little chat on the side. We would make jokes with one another. We would send private messages. So virtual wasn't bad for me. It wasn't a disconnect because we're already so much on social media and we're using all the like, we have a digital world already, so it wasn't hard. And then when we got in person, it was just even better because it's like, I remember you, you're the one who put all those memes in the chat. So like it kind of created this sense of familiarity. Is that the way I say it? I think I said it right. But so it was good. Like it kind of set the foundation for like, okay, I don't have to be afraid when I actually see the person. And then when we saw each other, it was just great and we all gelled. So really, it's going to be what you make it, whether it's virtual or in person, you're in control of like your experience. So if you want to have an interactive experience, you have to make it that regardless of whether it's virtual or in person.
Awesome, thank you. All right, are there any other questions from any students? Anything that you guys want to know?
Is there any good, besides the one that PD suggested, is there any good websites for like finding grad schools or like anything to do with that? Any resources that you guys would recommend?
The one PD mentioned is great. In all honesty, grad school is a little bit different from undergrad. Undergrad, I feel like there's so many things out there, whereas grad school, you kind of have to really, at least for me, I did the research on my own. I literally Googled higher education policy programs, like in like good college programs. And that's how I really started it. And I started comparing, pricing and GA availability and everything like that. So that was like the main thing. Really Google was like really helpful, but the website that PD dropped in the chat is going to be very helpful as well.
One other thing that I did too, I don't know if any of you use Reddit, but once you're in the process of applying to graduate school, you can Google, you can Reddit search and type graduate admissions, for instance, 2022-23. And there's a lot of communities that you can join where people can, ask questions if they're facing any difficulties, share their expertise and how they've done certain things. But in my case, to answer your question directly, I searched for astronomy degrees, where can I go? And typically for each subject, for each discipline, there are associations that publish research and things like that. For instance, mine was the American Astronomical Society. And within those websites, you can go to places where they will list graduate schools that provide certain degrees. But like Sam was saying, this is very specific to what you're looking for, and typically arrives once you've done some research on your own.
Thank you so much.
I also want to say this too, because I'm a part of it, and this was really helpful. There's a Facebook group called the Academy Society for Grad Students. People drop lots of information in here all the time. They have scholarship information, job information, admissions information. They're connected to different people at institutions. So this Facebook group would be really good for anyone who wants to get more information.
I want to draw attention to the chat for the question about scholarships. And I saw that Noor answered, and just saying that they are not as abundant. Really, it is those GAs where you are putting in time and hours to get that tuition waiver rather than your traditional scholarship. But that doesn't mean that they're not out there. They're just really, you got to scrounge them up. So you can look for them, but they are typically those GAs or the research assistant type of scholarships. And then I see a question, I'm actually gonna ask if Petey knows the answer to this. If I live on campus in grad school, will my financial aid cover some of it?
So there are two components, and we've been extensively talking about GAs, GRAs, and those types of funding capabilities, which essentially is you working to cover your costs of attendance. If you would like, and if you're interested in being a graduate student at Westchester, and maybe you're pursuing to be in a HEPSA degree, like some of the panelists here, you can apply to become a graduate hall director. They still have ongoing interviews, and they are looking at those on a rolling basis as far as I'm concerned. However, the second part is that, and this is the last one that you want to access if every other resource has been exhausted, you can also defer to your graduate federal loans. And, this is something that you can do. However, I only advise you to do this if you have no other alternatives, just because we want you to not graduate owing any money. And that would be the most ideal case, of course.
And if you can wait, oh, sorry, Sam.
Go ahead, Charlie, you're good.
No, I was going to say some jobs offer tuition reimbursement and tuition advancement. So being with my long journey that I've had with graduate programs, I'm glad to say with Westchester, I only took out like a $5,000 loan my first semester, and then JP Morgan paid for the rest of it. So I say, even if you got to take a break, find your way through life before you go into grad school, that's kind of a benefit if you go later, is that you might have a job that will give you that tuition reimbursement. So first generation college student, you don't know about these things until people talk about them. And so some organizations even have tuition advancement where they'll pay for it in advance. So like they'll give you a letter that you can give to the business office and it's paid for. You don't have to be reimbursed. So those are different options that are out there as well. I wish I would have known about that, in undergrad, that, oh, maybe if I take a year off and get a job somewhere, that's a question you can ask when you're looking for jobs to try to negotiate, right? Do you guys offer tuition reimbursement? Do you offer tuition advancement? And that's great of why you took a year or 2 years off to go to grad school, because you're like, hey, I had to find a place that would pay for school because I'm already in enough debt. So just putting that bug out there.
I would also say that reach out to the department head. I know I did that for my department, and she literally had a scholarship laying around that nobody was taking, and it was for a grad student. I was like, oh, I'll take it. So reach out to your department head. There are some scholarships that are just laying there that you may not know about, or that they're trying to get rid of, or that maybe a student got out of the program and that's their scholarship. And also check the website. I know that that can be kind of slim and far in between, but I think you'll find most luck with contacting your department head as well.
Yeah, definitely. I second the asking, because that's how I got my GA position. Was I asked if there was any possible money anywhere, and they were like, yeah, here, nobody asked about this yet. So definitely ask. All right, and then this will be the last question. And then if you have any questions, like, you can stay on after or send us an email or anything like that. If y'all could put your emails in the chat, like the panelists, just so people have them if they need it. But the last question is just, if you apply to graduate school at WCU and you were an undergrad here, is there a better chance that you would get in? I can kind of speak to this. I think that it made my application process easier, but I don't think that I was automatically more so considered because of my undergrad being from Westchester. But I do think that it really made my application process easier. And who knows, maybe it did increase my chances because, you know, my program director now is good friends with one of my recommenders. Like, so you never really know, but it's not like you automatically go to like the top of the pile. But I would say the application process was made so much more simple and more affordable. Really, I didn't have to pay to send my transcripts anywhere or anything like that. But I don't think that I just got in more easily. I don't know if China wants to speak to that either.
I feel like I can't say this on the record that yes, you will get in. What I will say is this. I think Golden Rams love to help out other Golden Rams. And so I will echo Sam and say that maybe you won't get put to the top of the pile, but I think that there will be some consideration because you are already a Golden Ram and you understand the campus culture and kind of understand the systems that we use. And I think those kind of things get taken into consideration when you apply.
Second what China said, for sure. All right. If anybody has any other questions, you can feel free to stay on or send us an email. I just wanted to thank you all so much for coming. And hopefully you enjoyed this type of thing. We're going to try to do a couple more panels in the fall, similar to this, maybe with some different topics, scholarships and things like that. So thank you all for coming, and we hope you have a great rest of your banana day.